Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Holistic Human Optimization Show. I am your host, Ronnie Landis, and today I am joined by a special guest, Mukhande Signh, who is a really good friend of mine and also happens to be my roommate in the beautiful island of Maui. And I am really, really excited about this interview. We've wanted to do this for quite some time. And this is the first conversation that's dedicated entirely to one of my favorite passions, which is living raw, unprocessed spring water. And this individual is actually the owner and founder of the only company, or one of the only companies, I should say, for sure, that offers unprocessed spring water to people all over the United States and is delivering an incredible service to people really worldwide at this point, and really sharing with them not only the benefits of spring water, but how they can access spring water for themselves, for their families, and for all their friends and all the people that they come in contact with. And I've been getting into living spring water for the last 8 years. I remember when I first went to my first spring in Marin County, and my life was completely transformed when I did that. And I want to talk a little bit about that and just everything around spring water, the misconceptions, some of the controversies in the media that have come out largely because of this individual and everything in between. So welcome to the show, Mukhande.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. It's a long time coming. How you doing?
Feeling good.
Feeling good. Yeah. Well, I'd like to start, before we dive into water, I'd love to start off with just a little bit about your background, how you got into this, and also what's the background behind your name? Because I was listening to your interview with Luke's story, and I thought that was an interesting story in terms of like why you changed or evolved from Chris or Christopher and why you chose the name Mukhande. So maybe that's a great place for us to start.
Yeah. I just like being original, having something that is distinguishing and not too many other Mukhandes out there, and just a name that resonated with me. And yeah. I lost you on the audio there.
Oh, I was on mute. Yeah, I know there's a little bit like, what's the meaning of Mukhande? I want to get into that a little bit so people can get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah, so in the Kundalini yoga tradition, you can request a name, and it's something that goes along with your astrological chart and where you were born, stuff like that. And the name that came back to me was Mukhande, which means liberator. So it's a good affirmation, and something that reminds me that we all are here to liberate each other. We all have keys. We're all in each other's lives for a reason, to learn together and grow together and empower each other.
I found the reason I brought that up is because I found that particular meaning really interesting based on the work that you're inspired to do in the world, because water is really the substance that gives life to everything. It's the way that I look at water is that it's the only element or substance in the world that's pretty much the same as what we in the spiritual world would interpret as spirit. Like spirit individuates itself in corporeal form, in human form, mammal form. All of life really has the essence of spirit. That's what animates it, right? So when I think of water does the same thing. It individuates itself in all forms of life, from the microscopic single-celled algae, all the way to the insects, all the way to the microbiome of the earth, the soil, the trees, mammals, all the way to humans. Like, that's the stuff that we are made of, right? And yet there's so much confusion and distortion and misunderstanding around water. People think it's just like chemically H2O. They don't even really know what that even means, but it's just like hydrogen, oxygen, and some kind of like opaque substance, and you drink it and it's probably good for you, right? That's kind of like most people's interpretation of water. And I really want to dive deep into this with you. And really, like, what inspired you to get into spring water in the first place, and kind of take it from there?
Yeah. So what you were just talking about, you know, I think it's hard for people to really, a lot of people don't have a relationship with water, with what they drink. You know, they haven't seen where it comes from, or haven't really made that primal connection that is something humans have done for 99% of our existence, to like go to these sacred spots that are so perfectly energetically enhanced and complexed through nature. And there's something that really is special that happens when you make that first connection with water that you're collecting and seeing being birthed from the earth for yourself. And that's something that it just made sense to me, hearing people talk about the benefits of going to collect your own spring water. You know, it's just like food. I think water has a freshness as well. So when you're able to go and collect it yourself, you know, there's something that's hard to replicate with that. And, you know, also knowing that 99.9% of the spring water that you get on a shelf is going to be processed, which most people don't realize. Ultraviolet light, ozone gas, you know, there's a lot of different things that happen. And that's done for shelf stability. It's done so this water can sit in hot plastic bottles in warehouses for weeks without ever going green or tasting off or weird or whatever. So having access to that fresh spring water, like right out of the earth, that sacred gift, is just such a treasure that you can feel. You feel it for yourself. And that was the big catalyst for me to want to provide it to more people. Just feeling absolutely amazing, enjoying the journey of finding different springs, enjoying the nature and the different edible plants and berries and other things that are typically around springs. There's definitely some magic there.
Yeah, so much magic. I remember when I really got deep into going to springs around the country and harvesting my own water, procuring my own water. It really tapped me into a different connection with nature. And I think that's really like the underlining crux of the entire matter, is to actually connect with nature in its authentic, undenatured, unprocessed, original, and authentic form. And one of the biggest things we're dealing with in society is a lack of authenticity. And it's never been lost on me that what we put into our holy temple makes us more authentic or less authentic. The more plastic we take into our body, the more plasticized we become. Even as a personality, our personality is affected by the substances that we put in our body. Even if we're filtering water to maybe displace or filter out the physical contaminants that are in our water supply, there's an energetic issue, in my opinion, with anything that's coming out of the tap water, or the piping system, because one thing we know about water, and you can definitely speak to this more, is that there's an energetic principle to water. One thing I noticed when I went to springs that was different from distillation or reverse osmosis or alkalizing systems that was essentially processing the water and making it healthier, making it cleaner. And yet there was an energetic piece that was missing from it. When I went to my first spring, I realized that there was a transference of energy, almost a spiritual energy that was being transferred over to me. And that was actually, I have to say that was a big shift in my spiritual journey, because it's like when you get connected to nature, and you get barefoot on the earth, you start like doing things like sun gazing, you start receiving the photon rays of the sun into your bare skin, it changes your DNA. It changes your personality. You become more of a sun being. You become a more grounded being by getting grounded on the earth. But then when you take in the water, it infuses the energetics of the ecosystem that water is incubating in an underground aquifer. And you don't get that from a filter. You know what I mean? You don't, it's displaced, or it's, maybe displaced not the right word, it's missing. There's a void there. There's a connection there that's lost. And I'd like to just kind of speak to that too, because a lot of times we get focused on the physicality of food and nutrition, but the spiritual imprints or energetics of the food that we're taking in doesn't often get talked about.
Yeah, well put. Drinking water with things like there, we've done tests and there are lab verified probiotics in natural unprocessed spring water. That there's that scientific aspect, and then there's that other aspect that you just can't quantify without feeling it for yourself. And yeah, once you start drinking this real water, you need less food. And it also, it is like you said, it's that spiritual connection to source, to the earth that sustains us, like embracing it, like, oh wow, the earth is really still has so much pristine beauty and it can be healed, and we don't need to alter it. We don't need to the earth's not dirty. We don't have to alter water with machines for it to be okay for us. It's definitely like a disconnect that happens when we put up that barrier, and almost like a block between source and between the earth, which has so much beauty and bounty to offer us.
Absolutely. And this kind of brings up the concept of rewilding. And I know that's something that you're very into. I imagine that you getting into spring water was a large catalyst for the journey of rewilding that you've been on. Obviously, you've been here in Maui for quite some time. You've been on quite the journey of your own personal exploration into like what's truly natural. How do we live as natural human beings on a natural earth? How do we embrace nature as our ally instead of as some kind of opposing energy? One of the things that I see, one of the big detriments of living in a city is that you are insulated from the emanations, from the communication with nature. You might have trees that are transplanted on the sidewalks of Los Angeles or something, and you have some kind of sense, or you go on a hike or something, you have some kind of sense of the energy that you feel. Maybe it's stress reduction or something. You just feel a little bit better. But to actually immerse yourself in nature and to take in the bounty of nature, as you pointed out, in all of its forms, water being probably the most effective way to get that download into your body and for it to clean out the consciousness of the polluted city, domesticated mindset of humanity, and really start to undomesticate ourselves and rewild ourselves. I want to kind of speak to that. Yeah,
good points. So living in a city, a lot of, most of us know what that is like. And there's a lot of imprints that happen when you're in a city. There's a lot of mental noise. If you're really sensitive, you can kind of feel there's like an energy to a city just from everyone's thoughts, just from all the cars, lawnmowers, whatever, all that stuff, smog. It's all an energy. It's a big energy, and the earth has a natural energy, and it's really big too. And it's a really healing frequency. And when you spend more time deeper in that natural field, it really allows you to think clearly and to absorb all of these codes from nature, this idea that nature is infinite and abundant and always recirculating and just in such an infinite state, you know, whereas living in a city, there's just kind of, especially in America, there's just like this idea of like go, 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 always doing something. So yeah, rewilding, you know, this is the concept of sourcing your own food, sourcing your own water independently, and using that as a incentive to spend more time in nature. You know, hiking is great, but there's only so much of that you can do without really having like an objective. To me, that, you know, there's only so much I can do until I get kind of a little bit bored with it. So for me, like spending, it's more of like an adventure and a game when I'm doing something like climbing a coconut tree, you know, just totally present into what I'm doing, knowing that I'm sourcing food for myself and friends and families that is not, you know, oftentimes not genetically modified or has any type of fertilizer or any type of pesticides. It's just created by the earth. So it's naturally just super mineral rich and just charged with the prana of the natural environment. So yeah, you know, spending time in nature, like there's so many foods and medicines we can forage, and it's just such a great, and it's a great way to inspire us to get out more and also independently be a part of the ecosystem and live in harmony with our local ecosystems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's a pretty big topic, and it can go very, very deep down the rabbit hole. I definitely want to, because I feel like in order for somebody to do that, water is actually the greatest access point, right? That's been true for me. That's been true for so many spring water connoisseurs, raw foodies, and different people that I've come across over the last decade in this work and traveling across the world and meeting different communities of people. And the one thing that I feel was the most powerful for me and is the most ritualized thing in my life and my health strategy is water. Like that's the one non-negotiable thing. Like I will not drink tap water. Like that's not even like an idea. It's like, that's not even water to me. That's some kind of chemicalized, masqueraded, it's like chemical soup. It's not actually water in my own interpretation of what water actually represents. To me, water is an ennobled substance. It's a rarefied substance. Interesting alchemical perspective that I have on water is that no matter what problem you have in your life, whether it's psychological, it's emotional, it's a spiritual conflict, it's a financial issue, it's a business issue, water dissolves any problem into a solution, right? And so without water, there is no solution. And so if we try to bypass that particular alchemical code, if you will, and we try to work around it with all these machines and everything, not to say that you shouldn't have water filters on your shower, you shouldn't have a home filtration system, but what are you going to drink? What are you going to put into your holy temple? That's really the question I think that more and more people are asking right now. And I want to talk about spring water from your perspective because you're deep in it. This is your life's work, really. Like you're bringing in the age of Aquarius. I told you this the other day. I think like you really are the representative of the age of Aquarius. And what is the age of Aquarius? It's the water bearer, those that will bear the water on their back. And that's quite literally what you do and I do when I do get to springs and have done for years. Like that's a pretty interesting metaphor in of itself. But you know, so I want to talk about like what do people need to know about spring water, because we're going to get into the media controversies that you know that you've been largely wrapped in, and I want to talk about that. I want people to really see the other side of it. But what do you think that people really need to understand about spring water and things that they don't need to be afraid of?
Yeah, so you know, there's definitely been a lot of media opposition surfacing within this last year, specifically targeted at live water and my own personal character. And, you know, it's this agenda by whatever forces that be that want you to be in fear, and not be independent. You know, it's this idea that, you know, nature is scary and it's dangerous, and you should just stay at home and like buy food and buy whatever we're advertising and all of this stuff. So, you know, spring water, it's what we've drank for 99.9% of our existence. And, you know, people are just so funny with this, saying, you know, you can get giardia and all these other viruses. And yeah, of course you could, but our ancestors never got that and died, or we wouldn't be here. So obviously there's a way to do it that's safe. And, you know, it's not that we advocate someone just drink any source of water. Obviously you have to be discerning. And as long as you are discerning, as long as you know what to look for, you know, I've drank from dozens, if not hundreds of springs, probably just like you have. And it's just always been a great experience, you know?
You look like you're doing okay, Mukhande.
Yeah. Doing good. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of resources out there to find springs. You know, our company, the company that I created, that offers fresh spring water in chilled reusable glass, delivered to your door, that's an option. That's a great option. You know, not everyone has time to go to the mountains and go drive 3 hours from LA and go get it themselves. And, you know, maybe that's something you do every once in a while as a nice family trip or something, but just don't have that time to do that, or desire for whatever reason. And in that case, you know, there's findaspring.com, which is a global resource of springs all over the planet that the community has posted. People will post pictures on there, test results, and that's something that my company, actually, Live Water, is going to be acquiring and really working to build the infrastructure for providing free tests, providing more spring access. So that's one way to do it. You know, the spring that we go to, Ronnie, the one we went to about a week ago and filled up here in Maui, that's one that I found with a really cool app that anyone who enjoys the outdoors ought to check out. It's called Gaia GPS app. And that shows, you can get different maps of anywhere in the world. And there's actually a lot of these springs have already been charted when they were laying the maps for everywhere. So you can kind of find where different springs are in your area. And like the one I found, you know, it was just totally unutilized. And it's kind of a fun adventure to find it and like kind of rediscover it and then introduce it to more people, so more people can realize this gift that is just so majorly not utilized and is really there for all of us. You know, almost anywhere you live, there's springs that are really abundant, just depending on how far you want to drive or are available for to do that.
And I think people would be really surprised to know how prevalent these natural springs that are accessible to them. A lot of times you go to these springs and the whole community actually goes to that. If you're traveling across the country, I've done lectures, I've done like a 2-month book tour across the East Coast, and I was in Connecticut, and there was a spring right by somebody's house where there was a pipe out of it, and people go to there regularly. If you go to Mount Shasta, obviously that's pretty famous for some amazing springs. Like all over the place, people have no idea that there's fresh living water that's been there for thousands, potentially millions of years. That's totally clean. That's actually been tested by some kind of third party in the community or that town or whatever, and people are drinking out of it every single day of the week, right? And nobody is the worse or ill for it, you know. But I can definitely tell you that people are worse and ill for drinking tap water, and there is something called tap water consciousness that I just want to make sure that I get out to people. I've been saying that for a number of years, and that's actually become much more of a real concept to me when I think about spring water and I think about the municipal water supply and what's in the municipal water supply. Fluoride being one of the main contaminants in our water supply, and we won't go into the whole rabbit hole on that. Most people are in our field are pretty familiar with that, but you know, fluoride being a desynchronizing compound for the right and left hemispheres of the brain and potentially calcifying the pineal gland, which to me actually affects your consciousness. So tap water consciousness is a very real thing. And over the years, I've been very interested about how nutrition and how water and how sunlight and how the earth and how our air affects our consciousness and affects our personality and who we're showing up in the world as, and in our thinking process and what we actually value, right? When I'm in a city, my value system seems to shift a little bit to more materialistic things. But when I'm infusing my body with living food, what's the thing with living food? Well, it's water rich. That's the main thing with living plant food, in my opinion. Yes, there's the enzymes. Yes, there's methyl groups. Yes, there's a bunch of other amazing things. The nutrients are typically very bioavailable. But what's the real distinction? It's the food is rich in water, and it's really the water that's nourishing you. It's the waters of the plant, like in a fresh juice. That's kind of like a distilled version of that plant's blood or chemistry and life force that's being infused into you, giving you more life force. So it's the same kind of concept, but with spring water, it's more interesting to me because you're dealing with a substance that's been incubating underneath the earth, that's never ever been exposed to the outer atmosphere, that's never been oxidized, it's never been polluted, it's taking its first breath the moment that it comes out of the spring. That's like a really interesting thing to me. Like that's the most real, authentic thing that you could possibly put in your body.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you feel it, you know. It's an experience that is something everyone should really embrace for themselves. And yeah, you know, it's not easy to go out and collect it yourself, or you know, it's not cheap if you get it delivered, because you know, doing delivery in chilled reusable glass is just not the cheapest thing. And it's so important. I mean, how much water are we, you know? It's just like, it just doesn't make any sense to skimp or to try and like cut costs or to not provide yourself with the best water. Like, you know, that's just not really showing up for yourself, not really showing up for self-care, and so then how can you show up for your mission in the world, you know, if you're not taking care of that fundamental component of your health?
On that note, like real quick, like why would somebody want to consider glass opposed to plastic?
So we all know BPA is toxic, right? BPA plastics, like one of the main things in plastics for many years. I mean, the plastic is just, it's a whole chemical compound, it's lots of different stuff that have effects on our hormone levels. And then, a few years back, they came out with like BPA free plastic. And then they did a study. Actually the compound they replaced the BPA free plastic with is more toxic than the BPA free shit. So, with that, it's obvious, you taste plastic from water bottles that's been sitting around for a while. And you just know it's not going to be good when you're drinking microplastics and hormone disrupting things. And then, the whole thing with so glass is obviously the best choice. All of our glass is certified, lab tested, lead free. And then, you look at all the waste that's happening with, even if you're getting glass water bottles, you got to think about when you recycle it, if it actually gets to recycling, first of all, the energy to go to the recycling place, to get melted down, and then to get reshaped again and then sent out again. I mean, it's antiquated is what it is. And the time is here where we can show up. We have reusable glass, we have our 2.5 gallon glass jugs that we send all over the world. We've got 1 gallons, we've got 1 liters, and it's just a really, they're convenient. They're easy to travel with, to transport, to lift. And there's just really no reason why we should be continuing to participate in a single-use container system.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And for everyone that's tuning in on video, can you show us one of those sacred geometrical bottles that you guys offer? And it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, had a lot of fun in designing these. Water likes to flow, and in a river, it wouldn't just be boxed; it would be flowing through things. And so water likes to just kind of be able to move and have fluidity. And there's also, this is actually a compact shape. Most people are surprised when I tell them this is a gallon. And then we've got the insulated organic cotton carrying cases. So it just makes it really convenient for you to take the best water ever on the go and not have to compromise. There's no reason we have to compromise with something as important as water.
Yeah, I feel like if there's anything that we should not compromise, it is our water, for all the reasons that we mentioned and so many more. Real quick, I'd love to do a little shout out to your company and where people can immediately, if people are tuning into this and they're really inspired to really start implementing real unprocessed spring water into their house in a delivery method. They don't know, a lot of people don't know that you can actually have this delivered to your doorstep in these beautiful bottles on a monthly basis. So let's talk about that real quick before we move on.
Yeah. So live water, we offer, as I said, we offer glass anywhere on the planet. We will ship glass for people to use. And then the water delivery service, that's available most parts of California. I'm going to be reaching out to more areas soon. But as of now, San Diego to Santa Rosa above San Francisco. If you live there, we will bring you fresh spring water in chilled reusable glass. So it's still got all the good probiotics. And actually, Ronnie has a code for 50% off your first water delivery or 15% off any glass. So that's a huge advantage to try it out, try it out for yourself and just see how you feel.
Yeah, and that code is human potential, all one word. That'll be in the show notes. But if you want to go to that website right now, it's livespringwater.com, right?
That's it.
Yep. And then you also get 15% off your glass as well. And there is an interesting thing when it comes to the symbology of our living environment. You know, I believe that your environment suggests messages. It's called creating a suggestive environment, right? Like the books that we read, the art and the different messages in our environment is suggesting things to us all the time, right? So if you're watching the news and you're watching whatever, Donald Trump or the news or the old story repeated itself over and over, it's suggesting symbolic messages that are bypassing your conscious brain and going right into your subconscious brain and likely aggravating you. What this represents is another way to create harmonious, peaceful, suggestive messages. In sacred geometry, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that and why you put the flower of life on your bottle. But sacred geometry is one of those things that has a suggestive, influential, positive message into the conscious mind.
Yeah. So yeah, there's the flower of life imprinted on here, and that is a pattern that repeats itself throughout nature and throughout biology. And yeah, you know, that was really well put how you said that. It's like having this this sacred geometry glass really enforces the idea of water being sacred and special and not something to take for granted, and definitely makes you think about it a little bit more every time you sip, like having that gratitude, because we do live in such abundance with water. You know, most people don't even think about it, and it's definitely going to be time, you know, it is time that we start to think about everything that we put into water, all of our body care products, washing your car, laundry stuff, like all that stuff's going into the streams, into the oceans, like it's eventually reaching its way and then recirculating. So we have to start thinking about these things and really start to cherish water and look at ways to preserve it and present it to the planet, because there is such this same, you know, idea of lack or scarcity that popular media wants to project to try and sell it, and to try and, you know, big corporations trying to enforce water scarcity or take away rights to these types of water sources. You know, the earth is abundant, and it can be restored through the water, through the natural cycles of the earth's self-cleansing process. And we have to just, you know, embrace this change and really look at our relationship to water. And so, you know, having a reminder of that is something that's helpful.
Absolutely. You know, there's so many different things that come to my mind as you shared that. What I do definitely want to do is I want to go a little deeper into the whole media side of things. You know, as we alluded to before, you and your company and a number of other of your contemporaries, Daniel Vitalis and our good friend Seth and a number of other just proponents have been, portrayed in the media a certain way, which the media loves to do, right? Anything that is baitable, anything that they can bait people's attention and make completely outlandish headlines and distort a message. And, you know, I thought one of the videos that you showed me where you were on, I don't remember you've been all over the place, like on every major news media platform, Comedy Central, like CNN, like just all kinds of crazy stuff, which is actually really amazing because it's allowed you to get the message out to people that otherwise wouldn't even know about spring water. But you've also had to deal with a lot of criticism, a lot of crazy social media comments and, you know, kinds of things like that. So I'd like for you to kind of share your perspective on that and anything else you'd like to share, because a lot of people still don't know what goes on in the media, and they might see some of that stuff and be like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, like this new fad or something, right? Spring water's a fad, right? It's the oldest thing going, and yet it's all of a sudden a fad.
Yeah. So the New York Times reached out to me and said they wanted to do an interview. Flew because what we're doing is so different. We're the only ones doing unprocessed spring water in the States, besides Seth, like you said, with Tourmaline Springs, which is, it's in single-use plastic. I know they're trying, and yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do the reusable glass thing. It costs a lot of money to get the infrastructure going for that. Glass molds, having inventory to ship back and forth. And, it's hard to justify that cost for some people. But yeah, so, we're kind of at the forefront of what's happening with this movement to celebrating the Earth's most bountiful gift. And so the New York Times flew a photographer out to Maui, did a photo shoot with me, and then we invited him to our bottling facility in Oregon where our spring is. And we were excited. We thought this was definitely something that could be a catalyst for like a global shift to realize that there's kind of what's happening on a deeper level with most spring waters that are out there. And the day that it came out, the article, they, instead of picturing the spring where our water comes from, they posted a photo of the creek downstream from the spring, which of course could potentially have whatever in it, whereas our water in our spring that they took the photos of, it's coming from a covered lava tube. There's like an encasement over this lava tube, 108,000 gallons per minute. Just totally pristine water, totally, sterilized bottling facility, triple rinse jugs, triple washed. It's obviously completely safe. But yeah, so they captioned this photo of the creek with a misleading caption, like, "This is where they're getting their water from." And then, it's very interesting how the mass media works, as if like all of these huge networks just had pre scripted stories ready to go. CNN, ABC, CBS, Business Insider, Forbes. I mean, you name it. This story got around the globe. I mean, it was coming out in English publications in Russia, and most of the headlines was that our water was $60 a gallon, and would probably kill you. And yeah, the bottled water market in the United States is a $20 billion a year market. There's a lot of companies that don't like what we're doing, want to see it stopped. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, when something like that happens, that is just, not a lot of independent journalism really showing how bad fake news is. And then, with media outlets like Comedy Central reaching out to do an interview with me on The Daily Show, and then I show up and the interviewer is sick from airplane food, of course, and doesn't want to drink the spring water that I have, and wants to portray me as some charlatan who's endangering people's health. And then, I think it it really, it triggers something for people, because I think deep down people know, like, you know, it's kind of a lot to deal with the fact that we have been, you know, we came into this world as a matrix, in a matrix. Like, most people were born in hospitals, like, with fluorescent lights, and you know, spanking the baby and circumcision, and this whole thing of like trying to, you know, almost in a way like keep us contained in captivity, and kind of like a slave mentality almost, that a lot of people feel. They feel that, and they want to be free. And it is sad that we haven't grown up in natural landscapes, that we've, you know, a lot of us went to public schools or private schools where you're just sitting in white rooms learning things that aren't really, it's outdated stuff that's just not in harmony with Earth. So yeah, you know, it's I think it triggers people on a fundamental level, because they feel like deeper, like wow, this is really someone like challenging my fundamental beliefs about water, and like, who is this guy to go against the entire medical system and the CDC, and you know, all of these traditionally trained doctors that are prescribing all of the pharmaceuticals and, you know, chemo and you know, things of this nature that just aren't really making people healthy. So yeah, you know, I'm grateful that the New York Times created, at least created, you know, an awareness that, oh, maybe there is different types of spring water, and there is something to it, whether you agree with it or not. There is a fundamental difference.
Yeah, what comes up for me is that whenever the institutions that oppose freedom, for one way of saying it, whenever they violently and aggressively oppose anything, it's usually because not only are they afraid of change, but the actual, those that actually are controlling the you know, what's really going on, there's a reason for it. There's an agenda, right? And so what that tells me is that, like, oh, wow, then that means if I was just somebody that was just, I was not exposed to spring water, and I was just looking at the situation, I was trying to like figure out like, okay, is it safe? Is it not? Well, there's all this opposition from those institutions that are into tap water consciousness, that are into bottled water, into hormone imbalances and infertility and obesity and diabetes and all that. Okay, well, then that must mean there's something there for me to look at. There's something there for me to investigate with my own experience, and maybe look a little bit deeper than what the media narrative is telling me. Maybe there's something there that could be really powerful, right? One of the things that you were mentioning about your water in particular is that not only does it have a very high alkalinity, but it's also, and reason for that, my theory, the reason for that is because it's very high in silica, right? And there's a, you know, I bring this up because there's a book called Silica, the Forgotten Nutrient, and it really is the forgotten nutrient. When you talk about mineralogy, we talk about, like, you know, magnesium, calcium, iron, zinc, manganese, et cetera, but silica is almost always left out of the conversation. In my opinion, silica is the crystal of consciousness, like Silicon Valley. What is that all about, right? Like, it's what encodes the memory and the information that is in water.
100%. And I've seen some interesting crystals in our water specifically. If you look on our Instagram, if you go back a few pages, you can actually see where rainbow crystals had distilled within the water. So yeah, I mean, you're drinking with high silica water, you're drinking rainbow crystals. So, you know, being that all these computers are operating off of silicone, you know, it's our bodies are antennas and magnifiers, and the Earth's putting out this energy, and we're this electromagnetic field. And, you know, if you're grounded, then you're also like this channel for the Earth channeling through you. And so to really have your crystal, like to be upgrading your crystal with the Earth's silica is just going to help you project that much brighter and to help you think that much clearer. And yeah, you know, there's definitely something to that. You know, silica being the what they call the beauty mineral. That's kind of a rarity in a lot of foods. You know, good for hair, good for nails, good for joints, good for skin, just so many things. And yeah, that's the type of thing where like, okay, so if someone's out there, you know, you're drinking filtered water, right? You're going to get out, you know, 99% of the birth control drugs that are in the tap water because it's recirculated water that's like kind of a little bit filtered out. So you filter it out again, right? And you get out almost all of that stuff out. You can't put back in the Earth's natural probiotics from water. You can't put back in the natural rainbow crystal silica. It's just not, humans can't replicate what nature can do. And I think it's funny that, you know, we have this idea that what comes from nature just isn't perfect as it is, as in its original form.
Very, very well put. One of the things I want to point out there, because some people might be thinking like, well, what about Dr. Masuro Emoto's famous research on affecting the crystalline reorganizing structure of the water with your consciousness? And that's actually very true. Like that is a very powerful demonstration of how our consciousness affects water. And I want to point out that all of his experiments were done with distilled water. And I'm not saying anything wrong with it. In cases of detoxification, calcification, there's application for it. But what I want to point out about this is that the earth, we're not talking about necessarily affecting the water with our own consciousness. We're talking about taking in the consciousness that's already crystallized and organized itself in water and taking that into ourself so we can upgrade our own consciousness, if that distinction makes sense.
So Emoto actually did do a few experiments just between like regular distilled water with just no projection on it and like spring water.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, dude. And it's a big difference. Huge. I mean, the spring water one was just beautiful, beautiful crystals. The distilled water was just like a blob. So, you know, even with that, there's, you know, yeah, thoughts are huge. Thoughts are definitely huge. And, you know, it's like what the thoughts going through your head obviously are going to dictate your mood. You know, if we're always self-doubting, self-judging, or judging other people, all of this stuff, it's so important to start to look at our thoughts and just where we're at throughout the day. And yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's just a great example of how powerful thoughts and intentions are. And water is a great substrate to empower us to project whatever we want: love, gratitude, abundance, harmony. You know, it's the spring water is a natural tool to help us amplify that field out into the world.
So well put. And it kind of ties full circle to this concept that I kind of riff and raff on, is like, you know, you are what you eat. And I would say you are what you drink is the primary golden rule. You are what you think is really secondary, because I've been in the personal development industry for a good 15 plus years. And I can tell you right now, all the people that I used to revere, and I still think they're brilliant success and prosperity philosophers. I'm so grateful for them. But the big disconnect in that industry is what you put in your body, because, you know, people just believe like you can just think your way to good health. You can just think it, but where are you thinking from?
What's your fuel?
Yeah, what's your fuel, and what's influencing that? Is a hyper materialistic kind of programming inside of you that's your idea of success and that's what you want to manifest? Or in the case of what we're talking about, are you willing to be influenced by the vibrations of nature, which in my interpretation, water is the carrier wave for spirit to manifest itself in physical form. Because, you know, just on that side, in my little metaphysical lingo, as I always have to talk about metaphysics, like spirit as an energy that animates life must animate within form. It must express itself within form. Otherwise, it can't express itself. That's why we as souls theoretically come onto the planet in these avatar-like bodies, because we want to express ourselves in a physical form. Otherwise, it's just 0 point infinity, but we can't actually express ourselves in a conditioned manner. We can't create necessarily. So how does spirit express itself? How does it even get into a tree? How does it get into a human being? Well, it needs to be carried by something. I'm pretty sure that something starts and ends with water.
Yeah, man. Well put. That's a great metaphor.
Yeah, so the implications are deep. Obviously, there are certain factions that would prefer people to be on tap water consciousness for potentially the reasons I just mentioned, and many others. And so what you're doing, brother, is so absolutely important. I told you the other night, I'll tell you a million times again, every time you forget, just like I do, how important the mission that we hold is, because it's a big mission and people don't see behind the scenes. They don't see how challenging this mission is. If nobody's like, I didn't know until I saw all you showed me those videos from the media kind of distortions. I didn't know that it was that deep. And I was like, wow, man, you're really holding a light for the world. Like, keep going. I got your back. There's a whole community of people that got your back. Keep going, because this is one of the absolutely most important endeavors that any human being could be leading. So super, super happy. And yeah, just super happy for you and to be in alliance with you, and for you to be a voice for a message that is so near and dear to my heart, and to be able to share that with my audience, share that with all the people that that follow my work is really amazing.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, you know, we're evolving really quickly right now as a human, getting smarter, technology is advancing, and it's you know, there's dangers in that. You know, you can get sucked into technology and sucked into you know, wanting to just kind of check out and just have things provided for you. But I really, you know, have just found so much growth in going out into nature and like remembering those primal roots and moving with your body and like making love with nature, you know, having that balance. And you know, this rewilding or just, you know, call it respecting and remembering these fundamental things that connects humans to our ancestors, to our deepest lineage and connection with the earth. You know, we're all doing it together, and it's the one thing that connects all of humanity. You know, we all need good water. So I really am excited to see the shift that's starting to happen with people just really returning to valuing the earth on a deeper level, because it's you know, being in earth, spending time in nature, like, you know, whether that's hunting or fishing or just collecting your own food, whatever that is, you're gonna, whomever does that is gonna value the earth and its resources on the deepest level, and really be available to protect it and desire to protect it, and have that, be self-incentivized to do so. And, you know, we can regrow forests. We can turn deserts into beautiful landscapes and oases, because the earth is abundant. We just have to really start to shift our focus on how important the earth's natural resources are. So I'm excited for all of us who are waking up into this right now.
Absolutely, 100% with you. And so for everyone listening, one more time, if you're just tuning into this, go to, again, www.livingspringwater.com. Oh, Correct me.
Livespringwater.com.
Thank you. I always do that. Livespringwater.com. And you can get 50% off your first water delivery by using the code Human Potential. That's just something that we put together to help everybody out there, to really introduce them to the magic of this. And I guarantee you, my experience, obviously, Mukhande, yours, all of our friends, every single person that I've ever talked to that's really got into spring water, they never go back. They never say like, oh, okay, I'd rather have reverse osmosis water. It just doesn't ever happen like that. And when you do go back, by the way, and you're in a pinch or something, and you do that, and thank God for all that it's there and available. But when you do that, you can tell the difference immediately. There's no life force. There's just something missing. There's some kind of intrinsic substance that's missing. It doesn't taste like anything. It's like spring water actually has a distinctive taste, and every spring water is different. So again, livespringwater.com, use the coupon code Human Potential, all one word. You're going to save 50% off your first water delivery. Give it a try. This may be the most important thing in your health optimization strategy that you do for you, your family, and everyone that you come in contact with. So that's my little plug. Mukhande, it's been a total pleasure and honor having this conversation with you and also living with you. And you re-inspire me to put this message back into the world. So I want to thank you.
Thank you, brother. It's been really great living with you as well. And yeah, I'm super proud of what you're doing, the work in your world. Congratulations on your promotion with Purium, the great natural products that you offer. I know you just made it to the green diamond level. So, I love seeing brothers and sisters out there that are really promoting health and really, just want people to be healthy. And, we're all here for each other.
100%.